Welcome to What Dogs Have Taught Me. I'm your host, Julie Hart, and this is the podcast where we stop to wonder if we are truly grasping the lessons our canine companions could teach us. I'm a dog rehabilitator, here with something you may not know. The greatest teachers about dogs aren't necessarily human, they're actually the dogs themselves. At What Dogs Have Taught Me, we dive deep into the educational, practical, and sometimes controversial aspects of understanding our canine companions. Whether you're a seasoned dog trainer, devoted rescuer, loving foster parent, or simply someone who shares their life with the dog, this podcast is for you. So whether you're looking to deepen your understanding of dog behavior, refine your training techniques, or simply revel in the magic of all things dog, you're in the right place. Let's have a heart-to-heart. The guests I have on my podcast today are special people. They were willing to sign up for the first ever Feral Dog Immersion Program taught by myself and Kelly Engel. The immersion program was 2 days at the Las Vegas, New Mexico shelter, and then 4 days at a luxury home in New Mexico. Each participant had a feral dog to start the rehab process with and live with for those 4 days. The participants had already received guidance on how to interact with the dogs and to gain trust and become a team with the dog at the workshop. So they were ready to implement the rehab process when we got to the house. There were lots of opportunities to explore the area and do nose-centric bonding. We did an excursion into nature each day as a group. Nature and movement is very healing to humans and dogs, and it sure did make an amazing difference for these dogs. The people we have joining us today are Kelly Engel, Lindsay, Chris, Megan, and Trish. They're a mix of varying degrees of experience and interest in dog training and rehab. I had a great time, and I learned a lot, as I do from each dog I work with in every workshop. We also learned some ways to improve the logistics side of the workshop for next year. But more importantly, please join me in hearing about the Feral Dog Immersion Program's participants' experiences and listen to them reflect on their insights from the workshop. Probably what we should do is have each of you just describe your dogs a little bit too, for me to put this at the very beginning. Trish, we'll have you go first.
Okay. So my dog was Flapjack, and he came to the shelter as a puppy. We know that much, and I think he bounced around, a little bit. He went to another rescue at some point, and then came back, and eventually, started living or being in the office of the shelter. So he's not really like in the normal kennel. So I consider him like the mascot, I guess, of the shelter in a way. And I don't really know what breeds he was, kind of a chocolate lab mixed with something else, maybe Roddy or whatnot. And yeah, just very, very sensitive to noise and sudden movement, whether it's people or other things, but mostly people, to where, I hadn't seen quite that degree of sensitivity from any dog before. So that was new to me, and very helpful.
Yeah, he definitely lets you know when you do something that bothers him, because he's uber sensitive to it and he's very expressive.
Yeah, he was like a magnifying glass for sure.
Yeah, or even an accidental, noise or whatever. But he did actually, well, the mirror falling, he recovered quite well from that, which I don't think he would have done before. So
Yeah.
you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, and I mean, you guys, Julie and Kelly have had a lot more experience around Flapjack and had seen him over the years. So I didn't have that background with him, but we were all sitting on Kelly's porch at one point, just hanging out. And he kind of went behind my chair, which was near a big metal, I don't even know what it was, mirror frame that was very tall. And I don't know if he bumped into it, but somehow it suddenly came crashing down. And it scared everyone. He tried to bolt, And I stopped him, and he recovered pretty quickly. And next thing we know, we're back on the porch, and you could tell he was still like a little stressed about it, but it wasn't that big of a deal.
Mhm.
But it sounds like in the past, that wouldn't have happened.
No, I think he would have been a lot more nervous going back on the porch in the past and maybe would have taken him a little bit longer to get him back there too. But he just kind of was like, oh, okay, well, let's go back on the porch. I'll give it a try. Hopefully, it won't fall on me. So, I think his nervous system was calming down.
Yeah, I think that was the last day or second to last day.
Mhm.
Did you want me to say anything else about him or wait
Uh,
for the other questions?
if something comes to mind, go ahead.
Um, it was just cool to see the connection that I was able to have with him. And, like I've described before, I would kind of touch him to see how he responded. And he just freezes and gives you a little bit of a side eye and just looks pretty freaked out, which with any other dog, would be kind of scary, maybe touching a dog like that. But I could tell that he didn't have any intent to like do anything, and I was trying to gauge whether or not he enjoyed it, and I couldn't really tell. But then as the days went on, like by the last day, he would push into my hand and like basically ask for that affection, like touching his face and his head, which was really sweet to see.
Mhm. Yeah, for sure. Megan, you want to describe Voodoo?
Yes. So Voodoo, he was one that took me for a big surprise. She seemed like an adult that was shut down. She was brought into the shelter with a pack of dogs running in the downtown area. And was pretty shut down in the shelter. And during the workshop, she spent like most of the dogs, trying to hide in the bushes and avoiding, being seen and trying to make her small. She was the one that we had the hardest time trying to get into the car when we were leaving the shelter. Um, and, after a day or so, maybe of working with her, she decided on our first hike that all of a sudden she was going to come out of her shell and was happy and play bowing with the other dogs. Um, and really started acting like a puppy, which really surprised me because I thought she was an adult dog. I thought she was more calm. And she totally turned into a cattle dog puppy. So that was really nice to see how she felt more comfortable because she initially was one of the dogs. She was found in a pack of dogs. But when we had her in the shelter and we took her out of the shelter, she was kind of very anxious about the other dogs, kind of growling, a little monotone, staring at them, watching them, wanting them in front of her where she felt safe. Um, and just with that one, it seemed like the first hike we did, we kind of hung on in the back and let her get comfortable. And by the second hike, she was play bowing, wanting to, jump and lunge at the end of the leash to go play with the other dogs, which I thought was amazing because she felt comfortable enough, all of us humans, and wanting to interact. Um, and she was the one that I feel like came out of her shell almost a little bit more where she, by the last day, she was laying with her back facing us. We were all howling together and she was howling and she was totally fine with it. She had her back to us, really not concerned about the group or the other dogs where, if I moved a certain way or a noise would come, she would kind of get ferally and, be very cautious. But you could see the trust in her increased dramatically over such a short period of time. That was really cool watching her come out of her shell and almost become a different personality.
Yeah. Yeah, she did. She made a big change because at first she was like, I don't want any dogs around me. And then the second day she's like, let's play.
Yep.
So, Chris, tell everyone a little bit about Midnight, your little firecracker.
So Midnight, I had her because she was the most afraid, but not really. Uh, she was probably protested the most on the leash of any because she hadn't been on one. Midnight was Reba's daughter, who Lindsay worked with, and she was pretty attached to Reba. Every time she saw her, she would try to go see her, but she was also pretty attached to the other dogs. So I think that's why she surprised us so much when she came out of her shell. She was at first didn't want to walk with anyone on the leash, didn't want to get in the car, didn't really want to go in the crate. That was pretty easy to solve. I mean, she built some trust and took that direction pretty well. And then when she became a puppy and basically was would sort of protest to get to whoever she wanted to get to. And then we had to shift gears a little bit and kind of slow her down a little to see if we could make some connection. But when she was by herself, exploring and sniffing and so forth, she didn't pretty quickly, even after the first day or so, she never seemed like she was all that concerned that, I was behind her or near her or anyone else. She would be, Voodoo across the way. And she would just look and just kind of go about her business. So she came a long way, I would say. She gained a lot of confidence.
She did indeed. All the photos had her tails up,
Oh
So,
yeah, yeah, yeah. There was no tail tucking going on there.
no. Lindsay, tell us about Reba.
So my dog was Reba, and I would describe her as just this super sweet, super kind, just a really nice dog. She was looked like some sort of shepherd mix, and as Chris said, Reba's the mama to Chris's dog, Midnight, which was really funny because Midnight was so attached to Reba, but Reba wanted nothing to do with her. And even in the ways that Reba would show that, it wasn't ever very forward. The most she did was let out a little growl. But she was pretty passive about it and just like would back into the bushes and be like, don't come up to me, please. But she at first was pretty indifferent with all of the other dogs. And near the end of the program, she really seemed to gravitate towards Lulu and was being goofy and playful towards her, which was cute to see. She was a little wary of me at first, so I had to be really mindful about my body positioning, just to make sure I wasn't unintentionally putting pressure on her. But I would say that slowly shifted in the first 24 hours, and she didn't really seem to care if I was facing her or if I was behind her. But what I did still notice was she was wary of all of the other people around. But again, that slowly I feel like got better because I remember the first time when we had a little discussion in the living room, she's hiding under the chair, kind of seeking shelter. And then after that, all of our other discussions in the living room, she was kind of wanting to explore more.
Yeah, she was a sweet dog. It was interesting because I think she has good doggy mojo because the dogs all wanted to be around her.
Yeah, definitely.
So that was interesting, including the dog I had. Like all the dogs just kind of gravitated towards her. So that was good.
Yeah.
Do you want me to ask the others?
Sure.
All right. So, and this may actually, well, I don't know. This may be different. So, Do you guys have, actually, I'm going to leave that one for the end, Kelly, and we'll come back to it. Did you make assumptions and have a moment that you realized your assumptions that you made before the workshop were not correct? And if so, what were they? And how did they change your mind? Any volunteers for first?
I
I'll
will.
go.
Oh,
All
Lindsay
right.
can go first if she wants.
All
You can
right.
go, Megan.
What?
You can go.
Well, I guess initially when I saw like the feral workshop and what Julie was doing when she was like in the bushes with the dog, I was like, what kind of like weird holistic voodoo stuff is this? And I was like, but I feel like I'm a very open-minded person. So I was like, I'll go with it. It doesn't seem to be hurting the dog. So, okay. And so I was very surprised at had I not done that, I don't think I ever would have bonded with her because I was in her world sniffing with her. And it was by like the third time I was in the bushes sniffing with her, she was had her face up against mine, sniffing me, kind of like pressing up against me. It was every single time we stopped to sniff together or do something together is when she interacted with me. So I was very surprised where the voodoo magic thing actually worked and was so simple, but really actually made a ginormous difference.
Good answer. For the voodoo doll. Dog.
Yep.
That's funny. I know people have all kinds of weird assumptions about it. And well, from hearing what people have heard about Nelson, not actually seen, and it's pretty funny. Lindsay, go ahead. Don't hold back.
So I thought that the feral dogs were gonna be these like wild, crazy dogs. Like, I don't know. I just thought they were gonna be a lot more scared of us, or just like a lot more. I don't know how to describe it. I just thought their feralness was gonna present differently. Um, and so kind of like how that changed with Reba was like after the first 24 hours, I didn't have to be as mindful about my body positioning because she was okay sharing space with me and being on leash with me. But it was different when I was like intentionally trying to touch her to get her used to that, where she was still like pretty dodgy about that. And I could tell she was uncomfortable about that. So I think it just presented a lot differently. And even like in everyone else's dogs, I saw it present differently than I expected when I signed up for this class.
Did you think we'd be having like bucking broncos on a leash for 5 days?
Yes.
Only for a short amount of time, and then they chill out and they're like, oh, well, I might as well go with this person because, you know, she's there and she's taking me on hikes and walks and feeding me and all kinds of things. So yeah, I mean, it is pretty crazy thinking they're basically wild and then, within like 3 sessions, they change immensely. And I mean, to me, it's like just a testament to the dog itself that they're so willing to give things a try and change. And, if we ask them to do something, they're willing to try it. And I'm constantly amazed by it still, because I'm like, well, I wouldn't trust that person that quick.
Yeah.
So, Chris, you want to go ahead?
Yeah, sure. So my assumptions probably were that I really did expect the dogs to be a little more fearful than they were. And I think that's just from my experience, and the dogs that I work with are a little more like Flapjack. So, you see a few steps forward, and then the next day that same thing that they walked by is not okay today, or we have to work through it again. And so I'm kind of used to those baby steps forward and a couple little baby steps back, and trying to look at the big picture. So even though I've certainly seen dogs progress pretty quickly in a lot of ways, these dogs amazed me at how fast they came together, which part of it really could be that we were all together with them as a pack instead of just working with one-on-one individually.
Yeah, I
So.
think, well, especially the 3 dogs were actually in a pack of about 12 roaming the city. So they probably had a lot of comfort in that situation, with a group.
Right.
What do you think about temperament though, Chris, between what you see and these dogs? I'm just curious, like location wise, what you
really, I mean, of course, the dogs that I have worked with, a lot of them have come from the South. We have some local that have been under socialized, or what everyone loved to call the COVID dogs that didn't get out and about, sort of thing. But really, most of them have all been very dog friendly, which has helped them progress and not be as worried about people. But we see a lot of fears around people and a lot of environmental situations, which I think you don't see as much with the feral dogs, because they've been out there, and they don't flinch at every little noise and every dump truck going by and everything they see. So we kind of have like the whole deal. Temperament wise, I don't see much in the way of fight. I don't see a lot of aggressive responses. Of course, I'm sure we could push them to that. Don't want to do, but basically, a lot of them will do like a flapjack or a Reba. I'm uncomfortable. I'm just going to kind of freeze, and now we try to adjust ourselves to make them more comfortable, so that they can kind of progress and then not be that way. But it is a lot of environmental stuff as well as people, the ones that I see.
Yeah, I think that's one of the pluses of working with free roaming dogs, is that they don't have the environmental stuff.
Yeah.
And Flapjack and these other dogs are kind of a good comparison, because Flapjack grew up in the shelter in kind of a,
Right.
what's the word I'm looking for? Isolated environment where you didn't get
Yeah. Right.
that much stuff. And then the other 3
Right.
were out, wreaking havoc on the town at the gas station every night. So they had to get used to stuff really quick. So yeah, it's interesting. I just wonder, like, okay, what has produced X and what has produced Y, and what factors go into it. So what's it been, a week and 3 days? So how do you guys all feel? Are you all rested? Megan, did you get some sleep?
Yeah, some work. I've been catching up on it. My girl was the night owl and the early bird. So I've definitely finally caught up.
Yeah. Yeah. And well, of course, I was actually editing the photos and videos before this chat, because I want to put together a little video summary. But it also helped me, refresh my memory a little bit. And of course, just, what a great time it was. And also how happy the dogs looked in all the photos. So I really enjoyed looking at everyone's photos, because I got your perspective from what you were seeing for your dog, which was cool, versus just what I was seeing. So anyway, thanks for sharing all of those. And Kelly, do you want to go ahead and just ask the first question?
This is the first question. What surprised you the most about these dogs, the feral dogs? and then in addition, what was easier than you expected or harder than you expected when you were working with them?
You got to tell someone to go first.
Oh, Lindsay can go first.
So sorry, that was a two-part question. So what surprised you, and then what was easier and what was harder?
Yeah. So what surprised you the most with the dogs?
I think what surprised me the most was how resilient they were. And I guess this kind of goes hand in hand with the other question you're asking, because I'm reflecting on specifically loading the dogs in and out of the cars, how tough that was. And I think at first I was so worried that it would impact our relationship, Reba and I's relationship, pushing her to do this hard thing. But in the end, like, she was just totally unfazed. Like, it was hard for her to get in and out of the car and have that different type of pressure be put on her, but I don't feel like it negatively impacted our relationship at all. But that was just something that worried me so much. And I think that was why I had such a hard time doing it, because that was in the back of my head. Like, oh my gosh, I don't want to like scare this dog or make her feel even more worried about me.
Yeah. So in addition to that, what was easier or harder or both than you expected?
I would say what was easier was so Reba, she was a little bit wary of me at first, but I thought she was going to be even more wary of me than she was. So I thought it was going to be a lot harder to build that beginning of our relationship and have her not be like so concerned about me and like where I am and my body positioning. So she was still wary of me, but it didn't actually affect her as much as I thought it would. And then what was harder than I thought it would be getting her in and out of the car.
The car will probably be a theme, an overarching theme. Because for Kelly and I too, we kind of, I don't know, didn't think about that. So live and learn.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it definitely was like, it was literally their first time getting in and out of a car. So it does make sense why that was not only hard for us, but hard for them learning that new thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks, Lindsay. Megan, are you good to answer?
I am. I think my biggest surprise was how fast they really do bond with you when you take out the food and trying to, entice them and buy their love. I was really surprised at, how fast the bonding happened when you really get into their world. So crouching down and playing in the leaves with her, I almost immediately saw her be way more interested in me, because she was like, well, what are you doing on my level? As opposed to kind of being nervous. So I was very surprised at how fast that actually made a connection. Where I always thought, positive associations, give treats, don't push her out of her comfort zone. When a lot of it was more so take the lead and push her out of her comfort zone, but, guiding her. How much that built the trust of showing her, I'm not here to hurt you. I'm here to build a strong foundation and help you to get you all your needs met. I guess a lot of the hardest was for me, I guess was like the car, like, trying to find that fine line of pushing them out of their comfort zone, where I was kind of like, well, I just like Lindsay, I don't want to, affect our relationship. But come to find out, there's that fine line of pushing them out of their comfort zone. So that way they get the rewards of they did it.
Yeah.
The accomplishment and I think they kind of know that they're achieving something together with the human,
Oh, definitely.
which ultimately benefited them because I think each one of them caught on that the car meant we were going to go do a hike.
Oh yeah, there was that one time where Lou was like, "Come on, let's go," and was jumping on the back of the car. She wanted to go for an adventure, so for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. Thanks, Megan. Chris, to you. What surprised you the most about working with these dogs? And then what was easier than you expected or harder than you expected?
I think with Midnight, the thing that surprised me the most is how quickly she came out of her shell around everybody as a group and with the dogs, and just became, for the most part, in those situations, just a regular puppy. She had her moments where she was a little wary, but like a lot of dogs that are like this, we find that there are places that they're more comfortable. Like she was more comfortable being handled on the bed in the living room, and she was fine in the back of the car. So when the distractions and she was in her what she considered a safe place, it was super easy to do that. So yeah, she came out, you know, guns blazing when she started to come out of her shell pretty quickly, and that did surprise me a lot. The car thing wasn't super surprising to me because I kind of work with that a lot. However, I was surprised that they all really, when we found the system for each one individually that helped them build confidence to get in, I was very pleased to see that they moved quickly into almost wanting to get in the vehicle with barely any help at all.
Mm-hmm. Trish, have you thought of your answer?
Everyone's taken the good answers.
Yeah. I mean, it's not like really surprising, but it was dramatic to see the shift and like how quickly these dogs adapted and dramatically changed being removed from the shelter environment. And how quickly we were able to just come together and do all these like completely new things with them as a group and be walking with them together on leashes when some of them had just done it for the first time and were highly resistant and very frightened at the shelter. Just seeing that shift, it's like, even though it doesn't surprise me, getting away from that environment, it does, because it was so dramatic. And then what was the other thing? Something that was like harder.
Yeah.
I think it was more personal to the dog I was working with, Flapjack, where even though he started to trust me and build a connection with me, it was almost like we did this reset every day to where he was still very easily startable, did not like having someone behind him in any way, shape, or form. And it would get better throughout the day. But then the next day, it was almost like we started over from nothing in a way. And there were definitely small improvements over those 4 days. But that to me was interesting because I thought I would see a little bit more of a shift from him with those things but I think they're very deeply ingrained. So
yeah,
he's the one that we know of behaving in this fashion around people the longest. Megan, back to the original question. Sorry, I had it. What did working with the feral dogs? Oh, sorry. Wrong question. Did you make an assumption and have a moment where you noticed you were wrong about the assumption?
I think it was definitely the whole sniffing and getting onto their level is when I thought I was kind of like, all right, if she says so, but it was totally wrong, because it was the most bonding moment, is getting on their level and, playing with the dirt and stuff like they would. Like, I'm genuinely interested in the same thing, which was kind of like the idea of having a same play style or same similar hobby, except for we're sniffing the same thing and I'm interested in the same thing she was. So that was definitely an assumption of mine that I was definitely wrong with.
Well, and I'm so happy you just said, I'm going to give it a try anyway.
Oh yeah. And I think the other is I wouldn't say assumption, but being like working in rescue for a while, you have a lot of fearful dogs and a lot of feral dogs. And I had seen, how fast you were like, this really works. And I had an assumption of, okay, I'm sure it works and that it's, good for, bonding with them. But I definitely was wrong. And I was like, there's no way it could be that fast of a turnaround where they come out of their shell and bond. And it was that fast. It was dramatic results compared to, like, even day by day, how much they really progressed. And I was taken back by that. I was definitely one that would throw treats to dogs and, trying to build a positive association that way. And realizing with these dogs, food is a resource, but you can't buy their love. You can't buy them a relationship and trust and bonding, which where the no-centric way is bonding with them on their terms, not just you being a resource that they can take, and it might not ever do anything for your actual relationship. You're just a resource for them.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, I actually did a live stream with Bow Wow Bill earlier today. So, and we talked about that a lot too. Food's not bad. It can definitely work to your advantage. We used it to get the dogs in the car and that kind of stuff. But if you add this kind of stuff in, like the real relationship building stuff, then you have like the best of all worlds. And it helps the dogs come out of their shell, I think, because they understand what you're doing and you're doing something they do. And so then you make sense to them versus walking around not sniffing. They think we're nuts. They don't know that we can use our eyes better than our nose. They don't know this. So,
And then when you get the food out, they're questioning what your intentions are with the food. What are you going to make me do? Or so, like, just doing it took out that, kind of anxiety of them of, wait, because handing them food is also pressure. So it's a whole different mentality and way of approaching, for sure.
yeah, and I have to wonder, I believe the pack that the three dogs were from was the pack that they would come down through town and they would all meet at the gas station in the evening. And they did that because people would give them food there. And so I have to wonder, like, I have never been able to see these dogs at the gas station, and I have parked there for an hour in the evenings, and I'm like, no dogs whenever I show up, right? I've seen pictures of them there, like I know they go there, but I wonder the how the food was given and if people were trying to touch them when they gave them the food, like what kind of interaction that was. I don't have any answers, but I'm just curious because I think sometimes that can become, they realize, oh, people with food are tricky,
Yep.
So they end up not trusting people with food as easily. But that would be some kind of really long-term study. Well, which question do you want to ask next?
Well, Trish needs to answer that question.
Oh, sorry, Trish. Go
God, I can't believe you forgot me. Okay, so I really try not to go into these sorts of courses with too many assumptions or expectations. I've learned from going to many of Nelson's classes. It's important not to do that. And to that regard, I knew what to expect as far as like what Megan referred to as the woo-woo stuff. But I would say I was kind of on the same boat as Lindsay. After observing them at the shelter in the larger gated yard, first time on leash, etc., I was under the assumption that it was going to take longer or be a lot more challenging to find them cooperating on leash and, easily walking with us, etc. But I was totally wrong, because they're very biddable, and they went along with us pretty quickly, So yeah.
I wouldn't do that to you guys. Like having a dog being bucking bronco for 5 days, that would be exhausting. Oh my goodness.
Hey, maybe that's
mean,
what we signed up for.
Yeah, exactly. I was ready for it either way.
Well, if you want to come out and get one fresh out of
Yeah, freshie.
let me know.
Or I can drop them off on the way back to Boston.
Right? I know. I think it's a good thing we got them used to the leash a little bit.
We started them.
Yes, started them learning about the leash. Just because that way we were able to do things with them instead of the leash training part. And you still got enough of that, that you got a good feeling for it. Yeah, Megan, what's the status?
It looks like I'll be going back in 3 weeks to go get little Lulu to bring her back to Boston to finish her rehabilitation program.
Yay!
Very excited.
Awesome.
Yeah, let me know the dates so I can plan.
Definitely will.
Know them. And also I'm going up to the shelter next week. Kelly, I don't know if you're able to go, but we'll definitely get them out.
Was it the 24th you're going?
I think so.
Okay. Yeah.
And I talked to B, and they made Misha's schedule so she has 10 hours a week to work with the dogs. And B was talking to the girls about talking to the ladies about how good it is to get dogs out. And then she also said it'd be really good for the employees to actually take all of them on a hike once a week or something like that. I mean, it'd be really,
that would be amazing. Yeah.
So anyway, I'm going to go and, help them or whatever they need with that. So I'll give you guys an update too.
Awesome.
So.
Okay, ready for the next question?
Yeah, I didn't miss anyone this time.
Yes. What did go ahead. Anyone? Okay. What did working with the feral dogs teach you about working with domestic pet dogs?
We have domesticated them and ruined them.
Tell us more on that.
I guess working with the feral dogs, you really see what is the most valuable to them. So in working with Lulu initially, I didn't try, but I'm sure if I were to have handed her food, she would not have taken it. She was more so on the trust and the bonding. And way more to the dog's natural instinct of how a dog works and operates. She didn't want me petting her. She didn't want love from me. I wasn't able to win her over, where people are a lot of times have the assumptions with domestic pet animals that treats are the highest value or affection, when it's really safety and leadership and that kind of stuff of knowing that they're protected and they have somebody to advocate for them.
Yeah, it's
awesome.
It's very eye-opening for me.
Yep.
Too.
And then I came home to my own dogs and I was like, you guys don't know how good you have it. But it's definitely changed the way I view handling all dogs now, where I'm starting to have a better appreciation of what they really want and need from us humans.
So I have a question on that to expand. Did you feel so you have a lot of autonomy and the dog has a lot of autonomy, and so part of what we enjoy about domestic dogs is the companionship and that they enjoy affection. And with these dogs, you have to go on their time frame, or on their what what they're comfortable with. Did you feel frustrated with not getting your needs met, like emotionally, or being able to pet? Or
No, I wouldn't say I felt hurt. I think with the little steps of just bonding with her, it was the slightest bit of improvement was the feedback and kind of the validation of doing right. So, I wasn't hurt that she wasn't affectionate and wanting pets, because I knew where she comes from and that's not what she wanted per se. Um, but it was more so on watching her behavior and seeing her trust me a little bit more, or willingness to come with me initially, which was the greatest validation, and seeing her looking towards me and looking for me, as opposed to, wanting her to pet me, because it's essentially something that she wouldn't want that would be benefiting me. So it kind of takes out that whole emotional aspect, as it, like a lot of what we as humans do with our pet dogs is kind of, anthropologize with them and kind of put human feelings on them. So I'm like, it's not, oh, she doesn't want to pet me, she must not like me. It's more of where she comes from. She doesn't have that interaction, where it might be something she enjoys later on, but not something that she as her dog, as she as her own kind of dog didn't want. So it's more so kind of being tailored and watching what the dog needs and wants, and
yeah.
kind of taking our human interaction out.
That's a good question, Kelly. I'd like everyone to answer that question.
So that was a two-part question. So
Yeah.
So whoever wants to go next, the initial question was, what did working with the feral dogs teach you about working with domestic pet dogs? Whoever ever wants to answer that next. Chris, I see your face. You can answer.
Sure. So I think it was just a good reminder to do a lot of the things with the domestic dogs that we were doing this week, and that I do with fearful dogs, because they can also enjoy it. We've changed them so much. At least the humans think these dogs need certain things, like lots of toys and that sort of thing, and sort of sometimes forget that they're cooperative in that, but they may actually enjoy this other stuff than to be real dogs and enjoy smelling and hiking and all that sort of thing. So that was a good reminder. And that second part of the question, I'm really used to not expecting that from dogs, because typically with the dogs that I work with, we have to change a lot of that anyway, as far as like not giving too much affection and so forth. It's a lot of what has caused the issues, the humans putting so many of their needs on the dogs and not honoring the dog and what they need, and convincing them that we need to change that mindset to do what's best for the dog. So that's not usually where my mind goes. Not that I don't love affection from dogs that are well balanced and want that, but it's not something that I generally expect from a lot of dogs.
Cool. Trish?
Yes. So yeah, I mean, I think that this is the best way to learn and understand dogs, like at their core. And like I was saying earlier, Flapjack and all of them really are like magnifying glasses. And so you get a feel for how dogs perceive every little thing that we do. And it's definitely, a little more extreme. But you get a feel for like their language and perception of the world and how humans feel to them. So yeah, I think that's the best way to learn like everything you need to know about dogs that you can therefore apply to domestic dogs. And honestly, it feels a lot easier when you compare the two. It's like, wow, this dog feels like a piece of cake in comparison. And that's not the case with everyone, but yeah, that's just how it is from my perspective. And then what was the second part?
It was just addressing the kind of your getting your needs met, because both you and the dog have so much autonomy in this, and then you have to move along at the dog's pace or what their comfort is, not what you want. It's kind of how you felt about that.
Yeah, I definitely came into this like trying not to have expectations of like fixing or necessarily like seeing certain outcomes, and really just wanted to learn as much as I could from him. And if that was going to result in helping him in any way, then awesome, but it was helping me regardless. So I think I felt like my needs were met in that way, because I learned a lot, but I didn't feel like otherwise like I was lacking anything.
Yeah.
You didn't miss your nighttime cuddles with the dog. I should.
Yes, that's cute. Hey, how do you feel about it, Lindsay?
Yeah, so feral dogs taught me a lot about like what is the essence of a dog? Like what makes up a dog? And like having these feral dogs who are pretty much untouched by humans. Um, they were very, very honest, whereas I feel like with the domestic dogs, sometimes they have this people pleasing tendencies that almost cover up some of those things that I saw in the feral dogs. So it really taught me like, and I do this already, but like really honoring the dog. I just feel like I have this new knowledge on how to do that with seeing the feral dogs.
Yeah. And then did you have any feelings about wanting to have more of an affectionate relationship with your dog, and you couldn't do that? Did you have a feeling about that? Because we kind of talked about it.
Yeah, I feel like in general, like I do really honor the dog I have in front of me and like the different personalities some dogs have. I will say I didn't think she was going to be as not as connected with me, so I thought I'd get a little bit of that. So I wasn't disappointed by it, but it was definitely like something I thought about of like, okay, is there like something I'm doing wrong? But it's really just that's not who Reba is.
Yeah.
I also think with your dog, I do think there was something going on with her ear.
Yeah.
And so I think that actually, like that last day, especially, I think it really affected that, which was unfortunate, that we didn't check their ears for obvious reasons beforehand. Um, and ear infections aren't that common, but I think maybe she had something in her ear or ear infection or whatever that, is incredibly painful and probably.
Yeah, there was definitely some discomfort there, and I could tell like her head was really bothering her and how she was shaking her head and rubbing it on everything. So
Yeah.
pain
So,
definitely could be a factor in that.
yeah. And it'll be good to see, because now Bee's been treating her ears when I go back how she is with that. But it's always important because we got her before that really happened. We could see the difference. But if we had gotten her when the ear infection was like full blown, we wouldn't have known that was different. So I think it's always important to keep in mind there might be a medical reason, even with a feral dog, that they're not, as responsive.
Yeah, and that definitely makes sense on why maybe the intentional touch, because where I was touching her was on her head in like places where she could see. So that definitely could be a factor of why she was like, if like maybe I don't feel so good, that kind of hurts. And she didn't end up truly showing me something was wrong until like Friday.
Yeah. Yeah. But
I'm going to add in a little something quickly. There's a horse trainer who has a podcast that I listen to frequently. And every time he has another horse trainer on, he asks them a set of questions as a warm up. And one of the questions he asks everybody is, would you rather take in a feral horse for training or a horse that's been extremely spoiled to start training? And 100% of the time, every horse trainer will take a feral horse over a spoiled domestic, quarter horse. So, yes, Trish.
I wanted to add in one other thing too that I forgot is the other thing that it puts in perspective is just how silly a lot of like traditional training of like sit, stay, down, place, come. It just feels really silly and kind of pointless after working with dogs like this. So
yeah, that's a really good point.
Yeah, we might just want to say so we don't offend a lot of people. Obedience has its place. But
true. But if you were trying to do that out of the gate with dogs like this, it would result in a very not good thing. So
yes, very, very, very true. Like I don't even know how we would accomplish that without just totally dishonoring them and their feelings. So
it's like the lowest priority.
Yeah.
We're starting with these dogs.
And I think that kind of goes into training the dog you have in front of you. Because I agree, like teaching these dogs obedience is not what they need at this point. There needs to be a relationship first.
Yeah. And I think obedience is very, very useful for certain clients at certain situations, especially like maybe older people who have a large dog, or I don't know. I used it with my dog Annie more than I do now. I don't know if that would, of course, I know more now, so I'm not sure how that would play out now, but yeah, I find that building that relationship first, as Warwick says, right? And what is it? Relationship before training.
Yeah.
Goes a long way. A long way. And then it's kind of like icing on the cake, right? The obedience. It just kind of rounds out their skills and kind of what they need, but you don't have to rely on it because the dog trusts you and listens to you already. So
exactly. Yeah. Are we ready for the last question, or do you have something else, Julie?
I don't know. Is there anything else you guys want to say? I mean, you guys were quite, in the thick of it for 4 days. I know I want to say that I really, really appreciate everyone being our first go round and trial. And I think everyone did an amazing job with the dogs. And I was really happy to see all the dogs progress. And even when we took them back to the shelter how happy they were, because that could be a really kind of a downer end to the week. And it's also a tribute to Bee and the staff and how well they treat the dogs, and the dogs like them, even though they're at the shelter. They don't view it as a punishment or they're being abandoned or, any of these emotional things. They were like, oh, hi, I'm back home, and but it was really good to see like Lulu and Flapjack and Reba and them just playing in the yard, and they were all so normal looking,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
Yeah, they looked excited to be back at the shelter.
Yeah.
Actually, it was cute.
Yeah, I saw those videos and my heart melted. It made me feel better about them going to the shelter.
Yeah. I want to add one more thing in that just kind of expands on the time we had with those dogs is for Julie and I who've lived long term with these dogs. One thing, and you guys saw, you can see it, the hints of this right now, but one thing that stays consistent is that these dogs over a long period of time, like I know Julie and I talk about getting them if you can ever get them actually reliable off leash. But one thing, and I'm going through this right now with one of mine, Bailey, is that you have to be so mindful if you do have them off leash. They somewhere between what I want to call superstitious and spooky. If anything comes up, I don't know, like even with mine, I don't know that their first choice is always to come back to me, no matter how, great our bond is. They'll still spook and bolt. And Bailey has done that. She didn't spook and bolt. She chased my neighbor down about 2 miles away. She's gone. And thankfully I got her back. She did choose to come back to the house. So Chris, she's coming with a suitcase to your house now, but
Right.
But I mean, that's a dog I've had for 8 months. He's been off leash and most of the time because she just stays with the pack. But it's surprised. I mean, I was shocked. I was like, what? She was dragging a leash and everything. So, but I know with the other ones too, they, if you put, if I open the wrong car door to get in the car, my other one, if she doesn't like that car door, she'll bolt and go hide behind the house. And I have to go win her back because, convince her that everything's fine. So it's just little nuanced things like that are interesting in a longer term sense. So I'll add that in there before I mention the last question.
Well, I think to that point, I mean, I've toyed with the idea of letting Tipton run around my property.
Mm-hmm.
But I never have because it's risky.
Yeah.
And he's trained on recall. Like he comes when he's called, but it'd be just my luck. Like the moment I do that, or the moment I took him on a hike off leash, there'd be like a group of Girl Scouts coming down the trail, like some weird event that would
In costumes.
like completely send him into his past feral, like I hate children, I'm terrified of children state, and he'd just run away.
Mm-hmm.
If I think if I did it around here and he ran away, he would come back home.
Yeah.
Like
they do that. Yeah.
But that is a long-term thing that I talk to adopters about is, look, you can put them on a long line. I don't care if it's 200 feet long. As long as that dog is attached, he can have plenty of freedom and all that. But I think that might vary per dog some. And maybe if they were born feral or were in a home and all these factors, but I always err on the safe side with adopters with that.
Yeah. Yes. Okay, last question. Okay, let's see. Did you have okay.
Yes, it's a gnat like flying around.
Oh, okay. Julie's waving her hands. Did you have a favorite or most memorable moment during the week, during the retreat? So we'll start with Lindsay because I'm looking at you right here. So did you have a favorite or most memorable moment during this experience?
I think my favorite moment would be on Friday when Reba just like really opened up with me and led me all around the property, started rolling in some straw and just seeing her body language, like her hips were nice and loose and swaying, and she was just like, I could tell she was just totally comfortable. Um, so I think that was my favorite moment, but I think overall just meeting everyone and having such like an open and welcoming space where we could have all of these discussions, and a lot of people had different opinions and things to throw in there. It was just really valuable, creating that community.
Yeah, I felt like that too. Yeah, sweet. Thanks. Megan?
Yeah, I would agree with Lindsay. It's always great to have a bunch of like-minded people that all come from different areas of working with dogs and kind of coming together and throwing out ideas and, talking about situations and things that could affect different things. I think my favorite memorable part, I had a few of them, but the first one was when Lulu was play bowing and all of a sudden turned into the puppy when we were on that hike. Um, and I think it might have been the same day as when I was bringing her for her potty break and doing our loop. And she started rolling around on the bushes and she actually got stuck and kept all four paws in the air and was just watching me and wasn't freaking out that she was upside down in a bush with me around. And her just having her back to us on that last day where there was a lot of commotion. I think you had Bailey, you brought over Kelly, and we were all just sitting in the back talking, and Lulu had her back to us, doing the howling thing with her, which I think she actually appreciated. Um, so yeah, it was great watching how the dogs really bonded too. It was the hot tub night when we were doing the initial howling. Lulu decided she was a howler and she sang a lot. And so we were kind of howling with her because she wasn't offended. She didn't run away. But then the next morning, the first thing she did right out the gate was like, let's go to the hot tub. Let's go see everybody. Where she had that pack drive that she wanted to be with everybody. And she's like, come on, let's go back to the hot tub.
Thanks, Megan. That was a good memory. Trish?
Yeah, I think my favorite moment was when we went on the hike the last day at Ghost Ranch, and Flapjack was just like the happiest I'd ever seen him. You guys were saying that as well. Just his tail was wagging, he was prancing, and for the first time ever, he was actually pulling me on the leash because he was so excited to be there, and tongue hanging out, and just he looked so incredibly happy, and his little prance was adorable. And other than that, I agree with Lindsay, just like a really great group of people. We had an awesome time, great discussions. I love hearing everyone's different perspectives and backgrounds, and our Airbnb place that we were staying was just amazing. And it was the perfect place to be for that, what we were trying to accomplish.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was awesome.
Thanks, Trish. All right, Chris.
So I really like the last couple of days. It was pretty amazing to see all the dogs really kind of loosen up and really, I want to say, keep saying, come out of their shell. It wasn't even that. They were just like Trish said, Flapjack was prancing around. Never really expected to see him prance before the end of the week, and everybody just really loosening up. But I wanted to thank you, Julie and Kelly, I'm very grateful that you brought us all together. We took, a group of people that some of us really barely knew each other at all. Certainly the dogs didn't know us, and we were able to live together for many days with those dogs and collaborate and problem solve for the good of the dog and for us certainly with everything that we discussed and the connections we made. So that was awesome.
Yeah, I really liked how we figured out each other's strengths and would start,
Right.
if we needed some kind of technology thing, we asked Trish,
I was
right?
gonna say Trish,
Yeah.
the hot tub fixing.
Everyone asked Trish.
We just learned, how to survive better together, basically, like using
Right.
everyone's strengths and what each person was good at to, better the group. And yeah, I mean, again, just very grateful for you all giving this a try and enjoying it and
Mhm.
helping the dogs, because those dogs, they'll remember you forever. If you ever come back, they'll remember you. So you gave them like leaps and bounds start, you know, in rehabilitation. So that's that was our main goal, which I think we did very well.
Yes.
All
So,
right.
Kelly, what was your favorite?
I think every time we took the dogs as a group and went hiking, and it was kind of hard because it was hot and it was just a lot. And it was like we just all showed up. Like nobody complained. We just got out there. It was hot. The dog, some of the dogs were harder to handle. And like, I don't know, there's a wildness to it that felt just all of us doing that together for the dogs. And I don't know, that was really special for me and really solidified that's what I had mentioned this on the other podcast. It really solidified that's what I want to do with the dogs, is go out into nature and just be present and explore. So together as a team.
Yeah, it was a little bit of an experiment. I mean, for me too, because of course I bring them to my house, but I don't do things with a group with the dogs and go hiking like every day with them. And so it's interesting, all of that coming together and how I think the pack helped. I think the activities helped, getting out of nature helped, all that stuff really made the process kind of skyrocket them faster than like one dog would be at my house for sure.
Yeah.
Yep.
It was good.
What about you, Julie? Did you have a favorite moment?
I think, well, and this is just because I've known Flapjack for such a long time, is seeing him so happy on that last day. Just like, because I haven't seen him like that before. He hasn't had those opportunities before, I don't think. So that was really nice to see and know that he's capable of that, which I had a suspicion he was, but to confirm it, was good. But yeah, I enjoyed the whole thing. No one complained, which was great. You guys are much better, easier to do this with than my children would be. So, but
And it was kind of like a reality show. You put, all these dog trainers into the house with feral dogs, and then we're gonna load them up in a car and take them hiking. It could have been a reality show.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. It was so lovely.
Everyone was really good sports about, the things that maybe weren't planned the best or went a little wrong, or the rain, or, all that stuff. So
I think one of my other favorite moments was at Ghost Ranch. We were hiking and it was beautiful, and I was like, "Wow, we're almost at the top." And then Kelly lets us know that we're in Rattlesnake Mountain area, and to be very careful of where we are, because oh yeah, there's rattlesnakes. They're everywhere up here. And the look on Trish and I's faces, I was like, "How do I get out of here?" Like, how we were already committed, but I was like, "Get me out of here." And she was like, no big deal. It's fine. And I was like, okay, yeah, no big deal. No big deal.
Well, yeah, we got into those rocks and I was imagining the dogs trying to climb under them for shade. So that's why it occurred to me to tell you, because that's where the snakes are going to be in that area right there. But what is great is you can hear them, before you see them. So it felt appropriate to warn you.
But just for the record, how many rattlesnakes did we see?
None.
0.
None.
Just in case anyone's like, oh, I'm not going now. We did not see any.
Nope.
It adds to the adventure, right? It would have been a fun part of the reality show.
So
Okay.
I wanted to give a little update because I did go to the shelter yesterday and check on the dogs that we had in our workshop. Flapjack actually came up to me and wanted to be petted, which is the first time ever this dog has done that, and the staff has reported that he's getting more outgoing since being at the immersion program. Lulu was much easier to get leashed and did great walking on a leash and enjoyed playing with Flapjack a little bit in the fenced area. She also, when I was working with some other dogs and walking past her kennel, she almost looked like she was saying, hey, when are you going to take me out for fun? Reba also made good progress, and when I went to leash her and get her out of her kennel, she came up to the front and acted like she wanted to go for a walk. And last but not least is Midnight, who did amazingly well on her walk yesterday. It took her a little bit to refresh her memory about walking on a leash, but after that, she followed me around the field and we had a good time sniffing and investigating all the things going on out there. Kelly and I are going to continue to work with the dogs. We live about 2 hours away from the shelter, so unfortunately we can't go there all the time, but we plan to go once every 2 to 3 weeks and take them on excursions and continue their rehab. And meanwhile, the shelter staff will continue to work with them as well. So if you're interested in learning more about feral dogs and how that knowledge can help you connect with all dogs, check out the workshop next year. We haven't decided on a date yet, but it'll be in May 2026, and we hope to see you guys there. Thank you so much for joining me, Julie Hart, for this podcast. I hope you found it inspirational and educational and might cause you to look a little deeper into that canine companion sitting next to you today. Find out more about my online and in-person dog training options. Please go to my website, hearttoheartcanine.com, and go to store to see my workshops. And for online learning, click on the online learning tab. I have tons of online learning about no-centric methods, fearful dogs, feral dogs, and reactivity. Please keep in mind, this podcast is not made for individual dog training information. We do not know your dog. We do not know you. And so this podcast is made merely for entertainment and educational purposes. Please contact a professional trainer or one of my guests or me if you have a dog training concern. Dogs can be inherently dangerous, and it's good to exercise common sense and caution when dealing with dogs. If you enjoyed this podcast, please hit like or subscribe or follow to be notified of our next episode. Your continued support is very much appreciated. I really treasure all the good feedback and personal messages I've gotten about my guests on this podcast. Hope you all have a great day.